on Talking Lifestyle, around the house.
Talking lifestyle, talking about it.
When all you do is conveyancing, you actually get very good at it. And here's the best in the business. Paul Denny, g'day, mate.
Good morning, Tim.
Good to talk to you again.
Yes.
Now, folks, this is very important. New regulations controlling strata schemes come into effect at the end of this month, November 30, and we're here to talk about that. And if you've got any questions for Paul, by all means, give us a call on 13 12 83. Now, the tenants, let's start at the beginning, can be more involved.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of housekeeping and a lot of things that have been brewing for a long time. One of them is that tenants have been excluded from the running of the building.
Yeah.
From November 30, they will actually be allowed to attend meetings.
Right.
But that's all.
Okay.
And observe.
So you can voice an opinion?
If they're invited to do so.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you can attend and observe,
Yes.
but that's pretty much all.
Pretty much all. If there's more, if the building is occupied by more than 50% of tenants, they can actually appoint a delegate to the executive meeting as well.
Yeah. I wonder how many people who are renting would bother to turn up.
I wouldn't have thought. I wouldn't have thought many, but it's one of those things that's been brewing in the background for a long time, so it's been dealt with.
Back to the beginning. What was there a reason for this? Was there complaints or?
Yes, there's been feedback, and the government asked for submissions on what the Act was going to be reviewed.
Yeah.
So they asked for submissions, and that was one of the submissions that got up.
Yeah, I have to say at my mum's units in Randwick when she was still with us, rest her soul, she had all sorts of dramas, and we helped her with it towards the end, and it seemed that people could be really quite unreasonable.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
Look, and overall, owners are now being held responsible for their tenants' actions.
Yes.
Okay, so at one stage there was nothing to do with me, it's a tenant, but now they can be held responsible for their tenants' actions.
Yeah, be aware of all this. Well, listeners, be aware of this. Okay, now the sinking fund will now become known as the Capital Works Fund.
Yeah, I think it's a bit cute.
Yeah, what's that mean?
Well, it's just a new name.
I mean, change.
We know a building as an owners' corporation. It used to be called a body corporate.
That's right.
I still say body corporate sometimes, so I think I'll be saying sinking fund for some time now as well. So. But Capital Works Fund, that's the new name.
No, does that mean anything?
No.
No.
Look, I guess behind it is that many years ago, a lot of buildings didn't have a capital works fund or a sinking fund.
Yeah.
So when they had to do a big job, they had to raise a special levy.
Right.
Nowadays, they have to have a 10-year sinking fund plan. Capital Works Fund plan.
Capital Works Fund. Yes.
So there's contributions made on a regular basis. So removes the need for special contributions at a later date.
And again, if you've got any questions for Paul, I know it's complicated in some areas. 13 12 83. But can I again go back to the top? As far as your business is concerned, is conveyancing more difficult with these strata units than it is with a freestanding home?
There are often more issues.
Are there?
Yep, absolutely. Particularly if there's ongoing repairs and maintenance, etc. We always recommend getting a strata report to find out what's been going on with the building in the future and in the past, and that will often throw up some issues that need to be dealt with at the contract exchange time.
And there is that issue, isn't there, of you might have bought this place off the plan some time ago.
Yes.
So you really should follow that process through.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay. All right. Now, here's an interesting one. 75% vote needed to sell the whole building. That's important for the future.
Well, this is the one that's going to... This is the controversial one.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because currently... if you think about some of those 3-story walk-up buildings that have been around for 50 years, and the site's underutilised, and the developers are pouring over themselves to try and buy that building and put something else up. Yep. They can't do it without 100% of the owners agreeing. Well, there's always one that doesn't.
Always.
So now the new regulation is going to be they only require a 75% majority of the owners.
Now, the government must have done that in response to complaints,
yes,
I'm assuming.
Absolutely. Well, from the development lobby. It has been introduced in other parts of the world successfully. I think it's rather odd that the one person who's holding out to hold the whole thing up has usually been living there for 30 years, and they always seem to live on the ground floor for some reason. But, and look, you've got to feel for them because it's their home.
Okay, can I ask you, if you get that 75% agreement, the other 25%, do they have any recourse at all?
Well, it would, if they still don't want to go along with
Yeah.
it, it would go to the Land and Environment Court.
Okay.
They would assess it, value the person that doesn't want to sell. So, okay, you've got to sell.
Yeah.
And this is what you're going to get. But on top of that, you're also going to get your moving costs,
Right.
stamp duty to buy another place, etc.
Yeah.
So they will be properly compensated.
That's a really important one, that, isn't it?
It's very important.
Okay.
And look, I put this in the category of let's see how it works out in the long term.
Let's see what happens.
Because I would suspect that whole process would take a couple of years anyway.
Yeah.
So we're not going to start seeing any response to that for maybe another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and I'm thinking the place that I've told you that we've moved into, which is virtually brand new, there probably wouldn't be issues for some years down the track. But the ones you're talking about, the older style ones that developers are, salivating over,
Yes.
they'd be the ones, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. And look, and often those buildings are very poor repair.
Yeah.
So the maintenance costs are quite high. And the reason why most people want to sell is because it's just too expensive to run and maintain.
Okay, now a few more of these things. Now, be aware of all of this, folks. If you're in a strata unit, defects bond for new buildings, 2% of the building cost.
Yes.
Right.
Now, we alluded to this last week.
Yeah.
When you're saying, what about these recalcitrant builders who won't
Don't come back.
Don't
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
Well, from now on,
Yeah.
from July next year, the contract will have to provide that at the end of the building, 2% of the building cost gets paid to a fund
Right.
and is held there
Okay.
to pay for the cost of rectifying defects.
Okay.
So now my view is that 2% is possibly not quite enough, but it's certainly better than nothing.
My thought on that is that's a pretty good idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I can tell you like it too. Yeah.
And then flowing on from that, the builder does have ongoing obligations for the 2 years for maintenance, etc.
Okay.
The builder has to pay for a special survey to be done at the end to identify any defects.
Good. That's good.
Fix them up, and it's only at the end of that 2-year period that they get their 2% back.
All right. Mate, stick your headphones on. If you would, just put those headphones on. Because and if you can hear me, that means you'll hear Jane. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Jane's got a question for you. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Tim.
Hi.
Paul.
Hello, Jane.
Hi, just a person I need to talk to. We're having a body corporate meeting next Tuesday night, and we have to, there's 10 of us in our complex, and we have to come up with $25,000 each because we don't have enough in our sinking fund to do work on our premises.
Right.
Just wondering, do we have to get a personal loan out each, or is there a somebody out there is the strata able to lend our complex the money and we pay them back, or how does it work?
Jane,
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, Jane, typically what would happen in that situation, the owner's corporation can actually take out a loan itself.
Okay,
and then I guess it would raise what we call a special levy, or after November 30th, the Capital Works
Fund.
to repay that loan over a period of, say, 3.
Bank loan?
Yeah, if you approach a bank, the bank would advance the money, maybe over, say, a 3-year period, and then each owner would then make a contribution on a quarterly basis to repay the loan.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So we don't have to come up with $25,000 straight away each or anything like that.
Not necessarily. That's obviously one of the considerations, but that's a lot of money, and most people wouldn't have it. I would suggest the owners' corporation would borrow the money, and it would be repaid over a period.
Yeah, that would make sense. But Jane, can I ask you, do you think some of your fellow residents might say, "Well, I've got the $25,000, I don't need to borrow"?
Well, they may do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, there's a few retirees. They might have some money they can draw on, but there's a lot of young families too that I'm sure won't have $25,000.
No, not lying around. Okay, well, that'd be your option. Okay.
Okay, so normally, like the companies, the strata companies that look after us, they don't do that sort of thing.
Well, they would have contacts with a lender to set that up.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
that's good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
That's an interesting
Jane.
one, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, just a couple of things before I let you go. That bond thing's interesting. New requirements for parking enforcement. Yeah.
Well, yes. I'm not quite sure on this one because a month ago, the Owners Corporation was going to have the right to go in and remove a car that was parked illegally in a visitor spot after 48 hours and tow it out to the street.
Right.
Now, the memorandum that came out from the Department of Fair Trading yesterday actually doesn't make mention of that, so I suspect that was quietly dropped.
Okay.
And instead, what's in its place is that the Owners Corporation has the ability to do some sort of an arrangement with the local council.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe they'll get an infringement notice under their windscreen instead.
Okay. Now, I've only got a minute left, but this interests me. Greater flexibility to allow smoking around units. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah, so there'll be a new set of standard bylaws with a choice of what level you can allow smoking, one of which will not be an absolute prohibition.
Okay.
But there'll be I think it's 2 or 3 choices about whether you can or cannot smoke in your premises or whatever.
All right.
But the Owners Corporation can still pass a special bylaw totally prohibiting smoking at all.
They can do that
They
too.
can still do that.
Okay. There's new requirements for pets and some permitting minor works. Look, I think the thing to do, Paul, is to just make sure you're aware of all of this. And if you're a strata tenant or a strata owner, just make sure you're apprised of all of that information. Eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, mate.
Go on the website of the Department of Fair Trading. There is an information memorandum that can be downloaded.
Yeah, it's a good website they've got. All right,
Yes.
mate. Enjoy your holiday.